Chair Hernandez and committee members. My name is Steve Dye. I'm the Chief of Police in Allen and am representing the Texas Police Chiefs Association regarding the THC consumable products. You know, while we appreciate the intent of House Bill 28, we oppose it as written, and I will address our concerns. On behalf of TPCA, we appreciate this committee addressing serious concerns of police professionals across the state regarding the illegal and open sale of consumable THC products, which are currently being sold in retail stores throughout the state and are more potent than ever before. When I became the Allen chief in February of last year, I found that our city was like many across Texas. We had 24 of these shops in a city of just over 27 square miles. Many of these stores are close to our schools. We were receiving complaints from parents and regularly finding high school kids in possession of these THC consumables. We decided to further investigate and obtain video of kids streaming into these stores. Our subsequent investigations in partnership with the DEA and the Collin County District Attorney's Office have resulted in multiple undercover purchases of THC consumables, covert video whereby clerks and owners openly discuss which products have the best highs, 9 search and arrest warrants to date, 5 arrests to date, numerous THC consumables seized, over 80 products to date that have tested 7 to 78% THC with the average THC concentration 29%. We found that the THC concentrations listed on the packaging is always lower than the tested contents. Our criminal investigations are ongoing and criminal charges are forthcoming. Due to the current testing requirements and lack of clarity in the law, these types of investigations are very time-consuming and expensive, which is exactly why most local police departments are unable to adequately address these illegal products. As Texas law enforcement professionals, our concerns include THC consumables are lab-made, highly potent, unpredictable, and significantly more than the naturally grown marijuana from the past, which had a THC concentration usually less than 5%. The exploitation of 2018 federal farm bill, which legalized hemp, has led to the outright sale of these products under the guise that these substances are legal hemp imported from other states. Companies are chemically modifying industrial hemp and continuing to create new THC variants that are sold over the counter. We found that many products are mislabeled by out-of-state laboratories over which Texas law enforcement has zero oversight or enforcement. So most consumers have no idea what they're actually consuming. THC consumables are being infused into normal-looking foods with packaging and sugary flavors often targeted at our youth consumers. They're easily accessible and have significant health risk to our adolescents. Currently, testing is required on every THC consumable product seized by law enforcement. Police departments cannot afford this testing, and the retailers know it. Texas has one of the largest recreational THC consumable markets in the country, with most stores located close to our schools. This plague is in every city and every town, and state agencies will never have the resources to regulate, so local law enforcement needs a definitive statute that allows our departments to make arrests and seizures without the need to test products. Testing should always be the responsibility of the retailer. I provided you with factual information from stores in our Allen investigation showing how these products are marketed as candy, chips, and cookies, a photo of how labels are covered up by wholesalers and retailers to disguise the actual THC concentration in the packaging, and a sales goal from one store demonstrating the vast revenue being generated by these illegal products. Across Texas, we are now seeing burglaries and robberies on these businesses so that these THC products, which should have never been in existence in the first place, can be illegally resold. Our concerns with House Bill 28, as written, include THC beverages should not be considered as a carve-out. To us, the beverage is just another delivery method as vapes, waxes, and edibles. We can't rush this decision as it will only create another loophole that we'll be addressing again in 2027. If we don't ban all THC, then departments will continue to face significant challenges toward enforcement and testing. No THC should be allowed in any retail product so that the DPS lab will only have to test for the presence of THC, not quantity, and thus eliminate their backlog when law enforcement is trying to get these products tested on the criminal cases that we are filing. It is our understanding that CBD and CBDG can both be manufactured to contain no THC. The federal 0.3 THC standard is for hemp plant. We believe that this does not apply to the retail product for consumption, which we believe can be regulated at the state level. Retailers, not law enforcement, should be required to test their products in Texas labs certified by the DEA and register each of them through dishes prior to placing them on their shelves for sale. TPCA continues to support the established and legal Texas Compassionate Use Program for those with legitimate needs to seek assistance through a reliable and safe program. I have also provided handouts of a letter signed by the Texas Police Chiefs Association, the Sheriff's Association of Texas, the Texas School District Police Chiefs Association, TMPA, CLEAT, with all groups united in the support of banning all THC consumable products. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dye. Members, are questions of any of our panel? Mr. Darby, before I don't know which one of you is going to question. Just for the record, though, when you're asked a question, please just restate your name before you begin. Thank you.
I guess to the panel, I've heard a lot about synthetics, and I know very little. So can anyone on the panel explain the difference between synthetics and this THC, which is approved for the teacup program? So reduce it down to where West Texas boy can understand it.
Well, I'm from Claude, sir, so we speak the same language. I'll give you the practical answer, and I'll refer to them for the maybe more technical. So
Please
from
say
a
your
law
name.
I'm sorry,
Please
Chief
say-
Steve Dye.
Thank you, Steve. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Chairman. So from a practitioner's standpoint, what's happening is they're taking the Delta 9, and now there's, of course, the Delta 8, the Delta 10. Almost every week there's a new variant of THC being produced. They change the molecular structure in these deltas, and then they add chemicals, and that's what makes it synthetic. So when a product is consumed, many times about half of that product are chemicals that haven't been tested. We don't know what type of harm they're doing to the body. So when you hear synthetic, that means they've taken a natural portion of the plant, likely changed the molecular structure, and then added a lot of chemicals and additives to create, many times a higher high or a quicker reaction to the product.
Okay.
So yes, I'm the material, Diana Eberline. The material is essentially being converted using a chemical process to become the intoxicating cannabinoid. However, there is a way to naturally isolate the D9 from the plant, and that is what we are advocating for, the natural D9 THC, and we're only advocating for D9 in this case as the only intoxicating cannabinoid that could be permitted in these products. So none of the others that are typically in the market that are synthetic, sometimes 100% synthetic.
Go ahead.
Yes, so I would just like,
Ma'am.
Your name?
Sorry, Josie Gwendon, Dr. Josie Gwendon. So basically, synthetic cannabinoids, it's a great question. They're really more and strong, potent agonists at the receptors, right? So to understand it, they really bind strongly to the receptors, and it takes longer to desensitize. So basically, the molecules stay attached to the receptor, if I make sense, and then it doesn't detach. And what is more dangerous is the synthetic compounds that also are known for some of you as spice or K2. These are purely synthesized chemically. So, or GWH018, and these are very dangerous. These are pure synthetic cannabinoids, much stronger than THC, because delta-9 THC as a molecule itself, even if you can now increase the amount or the concentration of THC in plants through different process, the synthetic, basically the line THC and coming from the plant directly are only partial agonists to these receptors. So basically,
Can you repeat that? Partial what?
partial agonists. So basically, they bind to the
Say that.
receptors, but like in a weaker way.
Partial what? I'm sorry, I'm having,
Partial agonists mean you bind to the receptors, but it's more a loose connection, if it makes sense. But the synthetic cannabinoid will really strongly bind to these receptors and not detach easily. Does that make sense? So basically, the synthetic cannabinoids are much stronger and more potent and extremely dangerous, and they can be purely synthesized by chemists, not coming from the plant. And these are very dangerous because they've been used they're used in research, but their effects are over sometimes 100 times stronger than THC.
Mr. Chairman, Steve Dye, Chief of Police. Representative Darby, just one other kind of quick example. So Delta-8 is found in the hemp product. So in its natural form, Delta-8 is non-psychoactive, which means it doesn't have over 0.3 THC, right? But when they chemically modify it or synthesize it, then it starts to produce a high. So you'll hear that Delta-8, well, that's nothing wrong, it's not harmful. Well, in its natural form, that may be true. But when all of these chemicals and additives are added, it then becomes psychoactive and much more addictive and intoxicating.
Diana Eberlein, Coalition for Adult Beverage Alternatives. D8 naturally does exist in the plant, however, in very, very small quantities, which is why you see a majority of the D8 in market is synthetic. Again, why we're focused more so on the D9 aspect for, again, consistency. But one thing that I think is really important to identify is the fact that there are testing methods that brands do already to identify what is in their product, but also it can tell you whether that product is synthetic or not. So that's very standard in common practice right now. So it's not difficult to determine which products are synthetic and which products are using naturally derived D9. So with that being part of the regulation, you would be able to make sure that the product in market is using naturally derived D9 and not synthetic material.
let's talk about the testing. I think everybody wants to make sure that what they consume is actually what they think it is. Steve, you talked about having the testing be the responsibility of the individual seller or store that's selling that product. Talk about the testing, how involved in that, what kind of cost, time delay, all the factors associated with testing, and how can we get comfortable with knowing what's actually in that product? Thank you. Steve Dye, Chief of Police. So, Representative, that's a great question. So the way it is now, the testing for each product costs about $250 per test. So most departments in the state of Texas cannot afford that. So they submit their products to the DPS lab. Well, currently, if we're going to file a criminal case or just find out whether or not the product is illegal, they have to send that product to the DPS lab. Because the DPS lab has to test for quantity, it's a very complex, time-consuming, and expensive test. They cannot handle the capacity across the state, and you'll hear from Brady Mills here in a little while, I'm sure, about that. So what we decided to do, it's such a problem in our community, and I wanted to really understand the facts. So that's why we took it on our own volition to go and start testing these products. We're probably up to about $30,000 to $40,000 that our city has paid thus far in testing these products because we've had to use a private lab to do that more complex testing, and we need the results back more quickly because we're filing a criminal case. So what we propose, Texas Police Chiefs Association proposes that, like any retailer, if you're going to sell a product, you need to make sure that what's on the contents of that product on the label is actually in the product. Because what we found in our 80-plus testing, almost never does the tested contents, does that concentration of THC match what's on the label. It's always higher. So you can't rely on that packaging. That comes from an out-of-state lab
God knows if it's accredited. We have no way to know. All I can tell you is the products we've tested are almost always much higher. So we're proposing that the retailers, if you're going to sell a product, whatever product it is, THC consumables or whatever it is, then you bear the burden of testing the product before you put it on the shelves. You know, why should taxpayers have to pay to test your product so you can make money? And then they would.
Just because you're talking about it, are you suggesting that each retailer would pay $250 per product that they're selling?
No, sir. What they would do is they would test each batch of their product, right? Not we tested specimens that we seized. They would test a batch, and then we propose that they enter that batch into the dishes registry. So as a law enforcement, when we walk in, if we see a product on a shelf, we can look on the dishes registry if it's already been tested by that seller and see if it's an approved product. Now, there still could be fraud in their testing, but that relieves the burden of law enforcement from having to do that testing on the front end.
I guess I don't understand batch. A
So
retailer
they'll-
gets
Yes, sir.
a product in, how do they know? Are they going to have to test each product shipment that they get in?
Yes,
to
sir.
make sure that that product meets?
So if you go into one of these stores, it looks like a candy store or fireworks stand. There's all these brightly colored packaging. So each different type of product that they want to offer for sale, they would have to, if they got a crate of it, they would have to take one of the specimens or pieces or packages of that crate to have that crate tested. We're not asking to test every product, but every product of that kind would have to be tested and entered into the dishes registry.
And how long will that testing process last?
Well, it would be forever. So because there's no regulation on these products, sir, there's no FDA approval. Typically, when you go in a grocery store, because things are FDA approved, you know with good confidence that what's in the package matches the label. Well, this is an entirely unregulated industry. So I would offer that until this industry becomes regulated, then they would need to test.
Okay.
And Diana Eberline, Coalition for Adult Beverage Alternatives.